Hey there, thanks for watching. Today we're going to be in the garage working on doing rocker covers. We're going to be installing a Bushwacker model, a Bushwacker series. This is on a crew cab. This is a 2006 GMC Sierra. A lot of the manufacturers that are out there, like the Redneck Randy, do not have a crew cab model. They only have extended cabs. So we're going to be doing a review on these. This is the driver's side. This is much worse than the other side. This is pretty good amount of rust here underneath this door, and then as well here. So we're going to cut all this out, and I'm hoping not to have too many issues with, you're not going to have much material to be using your double-sided tape on that. We're going to clean this stuff up, cut out what's bad, and then spray paint with Rust-Oleum everything that's exposed, to where we can at least try and slow down this rust process. At first glance, these look pretty good. I haven't really looked at any other models or anything here. We'll see how they fit up on a dry fit. There's a couple spots where some of this plastic needs trimmed off. It's not perfect on the ends here. This is going on the bottom though, so it's not a huge deal as long as the top fits. But we'll just go over these corners here and sand those smooth to make sure everything's good. We'll see what the actual fit is once they're on the truck and do a mock-up there. But first we're going to wash this, cut everything out that needs to be cut out. Hopefully there's enough material left over to glue stuff onto, and then go from there. There's going to be a link in the description for these. This was $178 for the pair to the door from Amazon. Again, there'll be a link in the description. Alright, so we got the truck washed off here down at the bottom where we're going to be cutting stuff out. A couple things to note: make sure that you're using, I just used the dish soap, some Dawn, good for baby ducks and pickup trucks, remember that. You don't want something that's leaving wax or anything on, because you want to make sure that tape's going to adhere. Next thing that you want to make sure is that whatever rag you're going to use to dry this stuff off with, that it's just going to be a cheap one that you can throw away, because you're going to be picking up little chunks of metal and everything else. You don't want to go and then use that on something else. Same thing with whatever you're washing everything off. Or you can go ahead and just spray your wash rag off when you're done. Just make sure you're getting all that stuff off. You don't want to go wash your car the next time and have chunks of metal and that you're dragging all around. We're going to start cutting this here in a second. I got stuff covered up as best I can. You can see this wear area here from getting in and out. I'm going to hit that with some Rust-Oleum paint as well. We're going to cut everything out, and then we're going to let this set a little bit longer just to dry the water that was inside that we sprayed everything off with. We'll cut everything. Once that looks like it's good and dry, then we'll go ahead and hit it with some spray paint. The other thing that you can be doing while you're doing this is hot water. I got my paint sitting in here. It's only about 40 degrees out right now. This will warm up my paint on the inside. It was in the garage. It was probably 55 degrees, but that'll help it spray a lot better. And this is a diesel truck, so I'm not super worried about sparks and you know, something combusting or whatever. But if you had a gas truck with any kind of gas leak or anything like that, that could be an issue for you. So you also have some water you can throw on it. But make sure that you're wiping all that stuff off as best you can. Then once we get everything cut out, we'll paint it. The the edges that we've cut, everything inside as best we can, and then we'll also wipe down everything with paint thinner or alcohol, whatever I have on hand, to where that tape is getting good adhesion, because this is the only thing that's really holding that stuff on. So you want to make sure that you're giving it the best chance that it has. So we'll be using just a basic cutoff wheel here for this. Make sure you're using your eye protection and ear protection. I prefer to just use a full face mask when I'm using these, because if that thing breaks and comes off. So, but we're gonna get into that and start cutting. Alright, so I got everything I need here. I really like these full face masks here. This is thicker here. It's not a COVID mask, so Don't use one of those cheap flimsy ones. That's not going to stop this blade if it comes off and apart. So we'll get cutting on this. Trying to remember that we're going to try and take out as much of this bad metal here, but you want to save as much of the good stuff as well, though, because that's what your tape and everything is sticking to. So, you know, try and leave as much of the good metal as you can. Alright, let's see what we got here. So, this light. So the inner rocker is pretty good on all this stuff. This is my only concern is that we have limited material here for that tape to stick onto. Up in here is going to be perfectly fine. That one piece especially wraps here. But so we'll see what it looks like here. But all up in here, this stuff here, I just tried to cut out the bad. Now this section here looks like it's actually pretty good for a ways down. We'll cut over into this where this is starting to rot, but that'll give us a good tape section. So we got that section all cut out, and then we'll get in there with a wire brush and clean this stuff up. But I started to cut more of over here. However, here's the piece that came off, and that's all still really good metal. It just is starting to get your surface rust, and unfortunately it starts surface rusting on the outside and the inside. So double whammy. But we'll get this cleaned up here with a wire brush. Get it cleaned up. We'll hit these spots that are starting to surface rust here as well, and try and get that all cleaned up as much as possible, and then hit it with some Rust-Oleum primer. We'll hit this little spot too, because that'll be covered, and then essentially this side will be done with those two steps. Alright, we got everything ready to go now for priming our raw metal edges. We're going to have a clean rag with some paint thinner on standby in case we get it on somewhere we don't want. I got most of my areas covered. And then just be careful of what we're doing. I also got a cardboard piece we can go down through. So if you want to tape it all off, you can. It's up to you. But I'm going to try and make sure we get all of our edges here, especially the stuff underneath and inside, where we can at least try and prevent the rust that was there from spreading. Alright, so I'll show you here what this test fitting looks like, and you can see there's about a 3/16 inch gap on that piece that runs up vertically. So I'm going to point out to you, for some odd reason the GoPro lost sound here, but I'm going to point out to you that piece right there needs to be cut back about 3/16 of an inch because it's holding that piece from being able to go up against it. And you can see that better there. And then the other corner is going to be more or less the same. Alright, now you can see after I've done a little trimming with just a box blade, and you can use whatever you wanted to cut that, but the box blade is about the easiest, just be careful with that. You can see the fitment there with that vertical piece is a lot better. Next thing we're going to do is put the piece in the back, underneath the back door, and you can see that that seam pretty much lines up underneath where the door is, and you can see already that there's a little bit of a gap. I'm not super happy with how this lined up, and we'll get a little closer look here at it in a second. Alright, so you can see where these two pieces line up. Underneath, they're tight against each other, but there where you actually see it, there's about a 1/16 of an inch gap where those two pieces round underneath. And you can't move it left or right anymore because right there where my hand is where everything tapes up. You got tape all on that end. Now the next problem is right here that I'll show you. There's about a 3/16 of an inch gap where that corner piece is that would go against, right there where my finger is. And you can actually see where my finger actually wraps around it. So my concern is that that's going to be too far over where the door is. We have some excess primer paint there that is still wet enough to where you can wipe that up with some paint thinner, so that's not a big deal. But my biggest concern is that door there. And you can also see the test fit over here on that same vertical piece again. We'll end up having to trim that back a little bit as well. Alright, so we got that horizontal piece cut. Now that lets the vertical piece fit in better. And you can see that there. We still have the issue with this 3/16 overhang around where that door wrap is, and I'm not real happy with the fitment on that. You can't move it to the right because the taping all on that corner, so you'll see what the door fitment is, and it will not allow the door to close, so that is a major problem, and it actually affects the look quite a bit. I think that instead of having that cleaner wraparound look, now you're going to end up having this cut off corner. So I did not expect that for these Bushwacker products that were 3 times as much as these other products that were out there on Amazon or wherever else. So we'll end up having to cut that off with the razor as well. Again, be careful with that. Alright, so you see what the fitment looks like here. It's a lot better. We'll remove that double-sided tape that you can see there, and we'll move that back a little bit when we start doing the taping. And then that vertical piece there where my thumb is also fits a lot better. Now this piece does move when I close the door, but I'm not sure why that happened. It didn't actually hit that. But you can see that it's clearing that on that seam line as it runs down. So then we can tape that corner up and we won't have any other issues. Okay, after the light sanding, I wiped everything down again with the paint thinner. And then the next thing I'm going to do is you got to peel back the corners for where this double-sided tape is. And what I also did was you fold those down where you can grab them once everything is dry fitted up, and then I used just regular Scotch tape to tape the corners down so there wasn't a chance those things would move on me as I was putting those up. Okay, so before we start taping this up, here's the fitment on that corner piece. Now, it fits pretty good if you push this piece all the way over. However, if you push that piece all the way over, you have about a ½ inch overhang, which creates a problem. Here's the tape on the bottom of that piece, and it's almost all on that very last ½ inch. So then what was already limited to what you were going to tape down to is now almost non-existent. You can't remove the tape that is on this without tearing the crap out of it. So you're going to need to have some more double-sided tape, some stronger stuff. You can get that at any of your auto parts stores or anything like that, which I had to run into town and end up doing with this. And so instead of putting that tape on the rocker cover, what I'm going to do is I have my fitment up here, and you can see where those pieces are taped over so that they don't come apart. And for whatever reason, these things were super staticky, so when you first get them out of the bag, they just come in a plastic piece inside of a cardboard box. Wipe those down with like a dryer sheet or something, and that should help keep that from having everything stick to it. Every hair in the garage was sticking to them. But instead of putting the double-sided tape onto the rocker panel covers, what we're going to do is we're going to just put it right onto the truck itself, where I already know that there's plastic there. So where my hand is and stuff, we can put extra pieces, and then down in the bottom. That way we're not guessing where these things are going to line up. So that'll make it easier. So we'll start cutting some of that double-sided tape and putting them up. Now you can see where that white double-sided tape is that I'm putting up. I put as much as I could down in that bottom section there where I had some good metal, and then on those corners as well. And then because of that extra piece that comes up in the middle, I put another piece there, just trying to give this thing the best chance that it had to stick. So then all you're going to do is line up your end on that back corner where it wraps around, and then you're going to just start pressing down on that thing to get everything in place. Now because I already have double-sided tape on the truck itself, it will start wanting to stick, but it's not too bad. Get everything lined up, and then all you're going to do is start removing those pieces of red tape and pressing down. Okay, now you can see the fitment here. That piece there is pretty good. I still have about a 1/16 of an inch, and you'll see that there's a little bit of wiggle in that, but there's really not much else I can do about it, just the way that that piece is formed, even if you're pushing over on it. And then you'll also see that where it goes down and around on the bottom, and then also the door fitment here. Okay, the front piece went on just like the other one. I taped over those pieces and then was able to put everything up. I put more double-sided tape on whatever metal was there on the bottom so that everything would stick. You can see this gap in between. I'm still not real happy with that. There's nothing I can do about it. But the gap on that horizontal piece and the vertical piece is a pretty good fit. Everything underneath is pretty good. So that wasn't too much of anything I could complain about. I did the same thing with the double-sided tape, which is kind of what I'm feeling there. For whatever reason, that static electricity holding everything to it. And then you can see the fitment here on the back of the door after I'd trimmed that piece off. So the edges are a little rough. I think that if I sand those down, that'll make it a little bit cleaner, but it would have been nicer to have actual clean mold line there where it went in, but nothing I can do about that on these Bushwacker models. Okay, here's the truck overall outside. These rocker covers do look a lot better than what was there before with just the rust and everything. So, I mean, you can definitely say that. Now, underneath here, you can see there's a little bit of a bounce. I might end up having to put in pop rivets. That front seam matched up pretty good. This middle one, still not super happy with that. I feel like the design, one of those could have gone under the other, and then they could have lined up better instead of showing that. I'm not super happy with that, but from a distance, you can't really tell. It still looks way better than what was on there before. Here's that back piece. Still feel like that could have been a whole lot better, but you know, nothing I can do about it now. For this review, I would say that I would have to see what some of these cheaper ones that are for $60 or $70 would do before I would nix this all around. But I would say that overall, maybe 3.5 stars for this. There was a lot of trimming involved that I just didn't feel like I should have had to have done for paying $178 for these molded ones from Bushwacker. I expected a little bit better quality from that. But hopefully this showed you something, so thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.